Welcome to another deep dive, and this one is going to be, pretty mind-blowing. We're talking AI and medical images.
Yeah, it's really cutting-edge stuff.
Whether you're prepping for a big presentation or just trying to keep up with all the breakthroughs, or even if you're just super curious.
Or all of the above.
We're going to break down a new AI model called BioMedParse.
Which, by the way, is making a lot of waves. People are calling it a potential game changer.
Yeah.
We're talking about an AI that can look at a CT scan,
Oh, wow.
an MRI, even a microscopic slide,
No way.
and do things like spot a tumor or even pick out individual cells.
Hold on. One AI can handle all those different kinds of images. I thought usually these AIs are built for like one specific thing.
Right, most of them are. They're specialists.
Yeah.
But BioMedParse is, you could say, more of a generalist.
Interesting.
It's built on what's called a foundation model, and the researchers trained it on this absolutely massive data set that they created
Okay.
called BioMedParseData.
So they didn't just like grab random images from all over the place?
No, they were actually pretty smart about it. They started with 45 existing data sets that already had what are called segmentation masks. That means the important objects in the images were already labeled.
I see.
Then they used GPT-4, that super smart language model everyone's talking about,
Right.
to basically standardize all the labels and descriptions.
Oh, okay. So they created like a universal language
Just that.
for the AI to understand.
So instead of just learning from this random jumble of images, BioMedParse was trained on this carefully organized library of images and text.
That's amazing.
Yeah, like training a medical student, but super powered.
Wow. Okay, but what can this thing actually do?
Well, one of the coolest things is that it can respond to, like, text prompts. You're a doctor, right? So you're looking at a brain MRI.
Mm-hmm.
You could literally just type in, find the tumor, and BioMedParse would highlight it for you.
Whoa, that's so intuitive. I remember reading about those older models where doctors had to like manually draw boxes around the areas of interest. This is so much faster and easier, especially if you're dealing with tons and tons of images.
Yeah, that's a big part of why this is such a breakthrough. It's not just about accuracy, it's about making it easy to use and really efficient.
I see.
Like, imagine being able to analyze thousands of cell images with a single command.
Oh, wow.
That opens up so many research possibilities that were just way too time-consuming before.
So it's like having a second pair of eyes
Right.
that never gets tired
Super-powered eyes.
and sees every little detail. And speaking of details, the paper mentions how good BioMedParse is at finding those irregular shapes.
Right, the kind of things that older models really struggled with.
Yeah, like tumors or cells, things that don't fit neatly into a little box.
Exactly. And those irregular shapes are often the most important to find, especially in medicine.
Okay, yeah. I'm starting to see why everyone is so excited about this.
Yeah.
Being able to pick out those subtle, weird-shaped objects.
Exactly.
It's like having, I don't know, a much more powerful microscope.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like seeing things that you might miss otherwise.
Wow. And, okay, get this. BioMedParse doesn't just find these objects, it can actually label them too.
Yeah.
Like say what kind of cell it is or what type of tumor.
Right, we call that object recognition. It takes the analysis to a whole other level.
So it's getting closer and closer to what a human expert would do.
Right. A human expert would look at the image, identify what they see, and then give their interpretation. BioMedParse is getting closer to that.
And you know what's wild? They actually tested BioMedParse against real pathologists
They did.
using real slides from
Oh.
Providence Health System.
Real-world test.
What happened?
Well, BioMedParse was able to find the cancer cells and the immune cells,
Wow.
just like the human pathologists.
Okay, so it kept up.
It did. But here's the really interesting part. It actually found more cells than the humans.
Wait, hold on. The AI outperformed the humans?
It did.
Yeah.
And you know why? Because it doesn't get tired.
Right.
It doesn't get distracted. It looks at every single pixel in the image.
So it's picking up on things
It's incredibly thorough.
that the human eye might miss.
Right.
That's kind of amazing,
It is.
but also a little bit unsettling.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. An AI that's more thorough than a trained medical professional.
It's pretty wild, but I know even the researchers say there's room for improvement, right?
Oh, absolutely. They highlight a few key areas.
Yeah, like that thing about how it handles 3D images.
Right. So right now, it analyzes 3D images by breaking them down into 2D slices,
Okay.
which can be a bit inefficient,
I can imagine.
and it might miss some of the context.
Right, like trying to understand a sculpture by just looking at photographs of it.
Yeah, a perfect analogy.
You're missing that that depth.
That 3D information.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's one area where they're focusing on improving it,
Yeah.
getting it to work with 3D data directly.
And what about that other limitation we talked about before? The one about actually counting the objects.
Ah, yes. Instant segmentation.
Yeah.
That's the challenge. So it can identify groups of objects very well.
Of like a cluster of cells, let's say. But it can't always tell you how many individual cells are in that group.
So it can see that there are cells there,
It can?
but it can't necessarily count them.
Right. So for some things, like if you wanted to track the movement of a single cell over time,
Right.
you need that precision. You need to be able to say, there are this many cells, and this is cell number 42.
Yeah.
So it's not just recognizing that there are cells, it's knowing exactly how many there are and being able to track each one.
Wow. It's incredible how much detail goes into all of this.
It is.
But even with those limitations, it seems like BioMedParse is still a huge leap forward.
Oh, absolutely.
It really shows the potential for AI to, I don't know, like change how healthcare works.
Yeah, I mean, it's a testament to what can happen when people from different fields collaborate.
Mm-hmm.
Computer scientists, machine learning experts, biomedical researchers, all working together.
It's amazing what they've accomplished.
Yeah.
And as this technology keeps getting better and better.
It's going to be so fascinating to see how it changes the future of medicine.
Absolutely.
And I think it's time we start talking about what all of this means for us. For the patients, for the doctors, for the researchers, really for everyone.
Yeah, what are the implications? What does it mean for us as individuals? What does it mean for society? Big questions.
Big questions, and we'll dive into those right after this.
You know, before we get too far ahead of ourselves talking about like AI doctors and all that,
Yeah.
let's go back to what makes BioMedParse so special.
Okay.
I keep thinking about that text prompt thing, like
Okay.
being able to just type in a question
Yeah.
and have the AI analyze the image.
It just seems like such a different way
It
of
does.
working with the medical images.
It is. And it's not just, you know, simple commands like find the tumor.
Right.
They actually show in the research how BioMedParse can handle much more complex questions.
Oh, wow.
Like you could ask it to identify areas of inflammation near the optic nerve in this retinal scan.
Oh, that's cool.
So you're having this
Yeah, it's almost like
back and forth with the AI.
conversation. You're like guiding it
Yeah.
with these super specific questions.
That's exactly what it is. And actually, the researchers talk about that conversational aspect as like a key area for future development.
Oh, really?
Imagine if you could actually interact with BioMedParse in real time.
Whoa.
You know, you could kind of refine the analysis based on what you're seeing, ask follow-up questions. It'd be amazing.
That would be incredible. Like having an AI consultant right there with you,
Exactly.
helping you understand these really complicated images.
And it's not just for doctors. Think about researchers, you know, in all sorts of fields. They could use this kind of tool to speed up their work, test out new theories, find patterns that, you know, maybe a human would miss.
So many possibilities. But we did talk about some limitations earlier.
We did.
Something about 3D images.
Yes. So right now, the way BioMedParse analyzes 3D images is it basically breaks them down into 2D slices, which works, but it can be a bit inefficient. And it might miss some of that, like, spatial context.
Right, right. It's like we were saying before, trying to understand a sculpture just by looking at pictures of it
Exactly.
for different angles.
A perfect analogy. You need that 3D information.
You need the whole thing.
To really get the full picture. So that's definitely something they're working on, getting it to work with 3D data natively.
And what about that other limitation? I think we touched on it earlier, the one about counting, like the individual objects.
Yeah, instant segmentation. So BioMedParse is really good at identifying groups of objects,
Right.
like a cluster of cells, but it can't always tell you precisely how many individual cells are in that cluster.
So it can see that there are cells there,
Right.
but it can't actually count them.
Exactly. And, you know, for some things, that level of detail is really important. Like if you're tracking the movement of a single cell, let's say,
Yeah.
you need to be able to say, okay, there are this many cells and this is cell number 42. It's not just recognizing that there are cells there. It's being able to, you know, count them and keep track of each one.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. It's like a whole other layer of complexity on
Yeah.
top of everything else.
But even with these limitations,
Yeah.
you have to admit, it's a pretty remarkable achievement.
Oh, absolutely. It's mind-blowing.
It really does show how AI could, like, fundamentally change healthcare as we know it.
Yeah.
And it just shows you the power of collaboration, you know, across disciplines.
Mm-hmm.
All these different experts coming together, computer scientists, machine learning people, and of course the medical researchers.
Right.
That's pretty incredible what they were able to do.
And as this technology gets better and better,
Yeah.
it makes you wonder, what's next? What does this all mean for the future of medicine? I think it's time we start thinking about those bigger questions.
Yeah, it's not just about the technology itself. It's about, what does it mean for us? What does it mean for patients, for doctors, for researchers?
Yeah, for society as a whole. Big questions.
Big, big questions. And those are exactly the kind of questions we're going to try to grapple with next.
It's really amazing to think about all this. We've been talking about this AI, BioMedParse,
Yeah.
and how it can analyze these medical images in ways we, never even thought possible before.
It's pretty incredible.
And it's got everyone talking about the future of healthcare, what's it going to look like?
Right. But as with any powerful tool, there are always those bigger questions that come up.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think one of the first ones that comes to my mind is, if BioMedParse is as good as it sounds,
Yeah.
wouldn't everyone want access to it? But realistically,
Right.
could every hospital, every clinic afford something like this?
That's a great point. And I think, access is something we have to be really careful about because we don't want to end up widening the gap, in healthcare.
Yeah. Yeah.
What if only the, fanciest hospitals can afford this technology?
Right.
What happens to the patients who don't have access to those facilities?
It's
It's a real concern.
it's a huge responsibility, and it's not just about the patients either.
Right.
What about the doctors? I mean,
Yeah.
if an AI can do so much of this image analysis,
Right.
does that mean radiologists and pathologists are going to be, out of a job?
That's a question that comes up a lot. Whenever we talk about AI, and I
Yeah.
think there's this fear that AI is going to come in and replace human jobs.
Mm-hmm.
But my feeling is, and I think a lot of experts would agree, that AI is more likely to augment human expertise, not replace it.
Augment. What do you mean by that?
So think of it this way. BioMedParse could do that first pass,
Okay.
analyze the image, flag any potential problems,
Okay.
and then the human expert would come in and review those findings,
I see.
make the final call.
So it's more like changing how doctors work, not necessarily taking their jobs away.
Right, exactly. And that's why, I think education and training is going to be so important going forward. We need to make sure that healthcare professionals are comfortable working with AI.
Mm-hmm.
They understand its strengths and limitations.
Right.
And they know how to use it effectively.
It's like learning a whole new language,
Yeah.
The language of AI.
So you can have that conversation.
Exactly. And you know what? That actually brings up another really interesting question.
What's that?
The question of trust.
Ah, yes, trust.
As AI gets more and more involved in healthcare,
Mhm.
who are we going to trust more? A human doctor or an algorithm?
That's a really tough question. I mean,
It is.
we're so used to trusting doctors
Right.
with our health. But what if the AI can provide, more accurate information?
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how that relationship between doctor and patient evolves.
Absolutely. And it's not just about the accuracy. It's also about understanding,
Yeah.
How did the AI arrive at this conclusion? We need to make sure these systems are transparent,
Right.
right? So that
Right.
patients feel comfortable, with the information they're getting.
It makes me think that, the future of healthcare is not just about building these amazing technologies like
Mhm.
BioMedParse. It's also about figuring out how to use them responsibly.
Ethically.
Yeah, ethically. Integrate them into the system in a way that actually benefits everyone.
Absolutely. We have to be thoughtful about it. Think about the implications, both the good and the bad.
Yeah.
And work towards a future where AI is used to benefit, all of us.
Well, this has been a truly incredible deep dive.
Yeah.
We've gone from, understanding how BioMedParse works to talking about all these huge questions it brings up, and it feels like we're just scratching the surface.
It is just the beginning.
It really is. And it's going to be so fascinating to see where it all goes from here. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, keep those brains engaged.